Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to the Day 2 recap of Europe. I imagine this video is going to be a lot shorter than yesterday's because there's just less games to go over. So potentially we'll have time to look over at North America because a lot of cool stuff happened there. But just before we get started in this, we need to talk about where we are in the whole challenges calendar. It is very convoluted, it's very confusing. And really when it comes to the broadcast and everything in between, there was no difference. I don't imagine there's going to be much difference in terms of the broadcast from yesterday to today. So we can talk about that a little bit. We have our top 8 teams now. We've gone through the first qualifier, and now we have our top 8 teams. We'll talk about how they got there. But now today is all about determining the top 4. And being top 4, qualifying for Challenges Week 2 might not seem like much. But what you have to bear in mind is it confirms that you'll be involved in Week 3 as well. So let's say Team Liquid, for example, they qualify for top 4. Not only do they have a chance of Week 2, but if they don't qualify for Masters in Week 2, they have another shot in Week 3. And it means they can avoid all of this again, which some other teams unfortunately don't get to. And because these are now trying to decide top 4 going to challenges, there's more best of ones to deal with. So it's really annoying. I feel bad for the teams. There's a lot to talk about there, but maybe save it for another day. But generally, that's the lay of the land. We're here right now, and we're trying to decide the top 4. So let's look at the actual top 8, going through these teams and the games that are up and coming today. And we'll just go from top to bottom. Let's start with Wave. I think their biggest result is this win against CGN. I was checking it out prior, and Muri's been on an absolute tear in this tournament so far, which is a good look for him considering he's usually like the Sova player and would most likely play it on maps like Haven. But instead, Nico, who usually plays the Breach, is playing Sky full time. Yeah, so that's interesting. Might just be the certain maps Bind and Haven, for example, but that's an interesting comp, and it seems to have worked dividends against CGN, who, as the ex-Lunaris roster, have been doing okay. I think they did well to get this far in the tournament. This was a fairly close game, but Haven, not so much, 13-2. I do think that this team being signed has helped a lot for them, and I trust that they're just going to get better over time. Whereas Lunaris, we just maybe didn't quite see enough of them really to go, oh, this is, a consistently good team. Like Wave, who made, very little effort on their game against no-namers, straightforward. It was more this game that was more of a challenge. I'm surprised STV lost, to be honest, but Wave, first team that qualified. The most interesting thing about Fnatic here is the fact that they lost this first map on Bind. Really, it looks like TSAC's Sky strategy. We've seen this a little bit, right, in other Bind games, like against Team Liquid and in the qualifiers on the first day. Not quite working out to complete fruition today. So maybe this whole comp and strategy that they like to run on Bind might not be foolproof. It's an area for them to fix. And the fact that this game went so way down to overtime, there was a chance that this, I don't know how to pronounce that, I'll be honest, but this team actually beaten Fnatic 0-2, but then they came back in dominate fashion, winning 13-2. And then from there, they had a really tough game against Giants, on paper at least, 13-9, 13-1. Giants really struggled on Bind. TSAC again didn't have the strongest of performances, but after watching a couple of games from Giants on this very map, Happy getting 3 kills is really rough. And Pips and Top Fragging is very interesting, but nobody played particularly well. This Giants team isn't quite living up to the expectations, I suppose, that people had of them, so we're going to have to see how that goes in the future. G2, easy win over Rix GG, 13-5, 13-2. I didn't realize it was that rough, but they absolutely bodied these guys. Rix GG, I guess like CGN are very much on the up and up with this squad, but I still feel it's going to be a time, and it's super unlikely, I think, that we'll see Rix even get into a Challengers final at this point. So being like the top 8 region, I think it's maybe beyond them considering some of the other teams that have shown a better pedigree. But G2 esports qualified, they beat Unsigned, which again was Jesse, Honeybee, a couple of players from various rosters like Royals, Purple Cobras. We saw this game on broadcast. This was an exciting one, obviously. Angel absolutely popped off, and even Shadow showing why he's still one of the best breaches in Europe. But this one, pretty one-sided affair, to be honest. A bit of a dull game. You got Alliance beating Inside, which is a good one, but FPX, I think, were always going to win this game, but at least a decent shun for Alliance, who I think are much better than Rix, much better than CGN, maybe even better than Wave, depending on the day. They were just unlucky running into FPX in this bracket. Same could be said for Heat. Heat are the old Need More DM team. They go up against Team Liquid on maps like Icebox, which I imagine was Team Liquid's pick, but it was Haven that they just got, again, pretty dominantly beaten on. Scream showing up, Soulcast. This Liquid's Haven, I think, is really good. And I do think that Liquid's map pool, other than Bind, is incredibly strong. And if it's now just best of threes, Liquid can just go, we're going to ban Bind. And then they can play Split, they can play Haven now, apparently. It's probably Ascent. Nah, Ascent's actually pretty good for them too. Like, it's the only map that I think Soulcast plays Silver, but his Silver is really good on that map in particular. Before we get onto the surprising results so far, Guild have a straightforward run-in. They go up against Warriors, which I think is the B7 Warriors. And it's, you know, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Yassine's back on form, which is good to see. Even Draken having a lot of kills across the series. This is much better. Safe, unlocked from the Killjoy, but that might just be because of the map pool. The Viper is really good to see. But still, I don't know. I feel like you want to see him as Sick from Sentinels, playing those kind of flex roles. But I guess you have Leo at the same time that's going to do similar stuff. But you have more of an aggressive player playing these agents, more of a supportive player playing these. There's a lot of really cool comps that Guild can archetype for themselves that nobody else can. And I think they should maybe do that more in the future instead of just going, safe, play Sentinel. But they did play more Viper, which is good. And finally, the last team to qualify, Monkey Business. Again, this game was on stream. Just watched a bit of it right now. Wasn't paid too much attention to the Ascent game yesterday, but I had a rewatch of it earlier, and it was just really tough from Team Vitality, especially this like really bright start. At least they do better at the end of the half, but I feel at this point the damage was already done. And I do think that Vitality, they used to pick Ascent on the Red Bull Homeground tournament where you pick a map that you want to play. Vitality picked it 3 times and they lost it twice against like Big and Diffuse in the qualifiers. So I do think that Ascent is just not a good map for them. But Icebox, I don't think there's any excuse, you know. It seems that Vitality have a plan at least for this map, having Brams on the Viper, FQ on the Reyna, changing up quite a lot for this map in particular. But somehow Monkey Business's playbook is a lot deeper, and I just think they're a lot better. Playing a Silver is really interesting. I thought that Sky was becoming more meta on this map. But it is an interesting affair, really. They played the Viper. Element had a hell of a series. I think you could point to him individually just being the reason. Like a plus 25 difference is staggering. So I do think that just Vitality did not have a good game. I don't think this is necessarily indicative of them as a team. Like, oh, they lost to Monkey Business, that means that Team Vitality at worst. I do really like these guys, but I do think that when you look at the actual players on this team, you know, Vac, Machine, Ascender, FQ, they have ability. We have seen that, but I think it is going to take quite some time to see this Vitality team really become strong. But I am super glad that Monkey Business, or OG if they are being signed, actually shows the side of them that's really dangerous and really competitive. They played really badly in the Red Bull tournament, and this response after all of the stuff with AKM's all aim, no brain comments is it's kind of like Soulcast, right? For First Strike, it was just kind of just shut up, get in the server and show us what you're capable of. And they did that, and I have to commend them for it because I think that's a good result. But this is just peanuts. This is just to get to here. Now we need to decide top 4, and that requires us to look at these games. Again, I kind of dislike the fact that it's a single elimination best of 3. I would love it to be more like if we go over to North America real quick, just a hop across the pond. You've got double elimination, right? And you have like Exec going down to the losers bracket after losing Immortals and making a run to qualify for the second challenges. So they're here now. Congrats to them. And so, like, you know, if it was just single elim, Exec would be out. And it would be Immortals, Genji, Envy, and Luminosity qualifying. And Envy and Genji didn't in the end because of this lower bracket. So I would prefer that there was like double elimination. I also think there should be more broadcasts because, you know, I am a caster looking for opportunities and there's very little in Europe. So maybe if the broadcast opens up a bit, that would be cool. More games to watch. I think it was Darkerplaxer pointed out yesterday that by the time that we get to Masters, we will have 150 best of 3 series streamed for America. For Europe, we'll have maybe 20. It's a lot to think about. But anyway, back to Europe. These are all best of 3s. They're all being streamed, thankfully. These two are happening today, so we'll talk about them first. G2 Esports versus Ninjas in Pajamas. The results against these teams are pretty much in one direction. I don't know why it doesn't like number head-to-head, but as you see in 5 games, 5-0 to G2, I would imagine it would be 6-0. I think NiP looked really competitive with this team. The fact that they did struggle, we didn't really point that out too much. I think we kind of glossed by this round. But they did go down into a best of 3 against 19 Esports, which again is this old Vodafone Giants team. Because of that, I am a little bit concerned about maps like Haven, some of these more puggier maps where, you know, players like Fatinho is going to absolutely pop off. Jaddy's had a really good tournament so far, which is nice to see, but they are playing up against G2, who you would put good money on to qualify, right? If you're a betting person, you would assume that G2 Esports would be one of those teams. So I do think it's going to go in their direction. I think that NiP can take a map depending on what they ban out and what they pick. We don't quite know the extent of their map pool right now, and it's not like G2 Esports are completely foolproof. They've dropped maps against near enough everybody other than Vitality in the Red Bull tournament. So NiP have taken a map, Liquid took 2. There's a lot of opportunities to upset G2 Esports, but I don't quite think this team is here yet unless we see Rhyme, Jaddy having a life game. But Jaddy is obviously looking to be good. So who knows at this point. Then later on today, we have Guild versus, let's call it as it is, OG. And this is a really good test for Guild. You know, I feel like this is a game that they should be winning. We didn't see much of them from the Red Bull tournament. I do think that their qualifying win was at least a consistent one against Warriors. They should be winning that, and they did. So, you know, thankfully. But this is a really tough test. You've got Monkey Business that clearly have upset potential. And so Guild need to be careful. They just need to play their game, see how much better they can incorporate safe, see how much Yasin can start to pop off. People look at Bonker as being a problem, but I think he's one of the more underrated players, honestly, at this point. Certainly after watching him a little bit more, I think people look at him not fragging a lot, being an IGL, it's not quite enough. But he does a lot of damage, he gets a lot of assists, and his utility usage is really strong, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Really, I'm more looking at Draken too, because he had a really good showing in the qualifiers to get here, but now he really needs to show up. And I think Unko's actually been an underrated player for Monkey Business too. So Unko versus Draken, the two omens facing off, is certainly what I'm going to be paying attention to. But we'll have to sort of see on that front, for sure. And Element is also nuts for Monkey Business. Like, he had a God series. So Wave Esports versus Fnatic, that's a 2-0 to Fnatic. I like Wave Esports a lot, but Fnatic need to show that they are the caliber of team that's top 5. And they should be having a nice, consistent win over Wave. There could be an upset here. Fnatic struggling to... That Polish team is a bit of a sorry sight, but they did win it out, and they won it out handedly in the end. So I can see a 2-0, 13-7, 13-8 kinds of maps. But Wave, especially with the form that Muri's on at the moment, Muri versus Doma is probably the matchup that I'd be more interested in checking. And then because this is tomorrow, we can gloss over this. The matchup of the weekend, TL versus FPX. This could be a final somewhere. You know, these are both very good teams. Team Liquid are on a really nice run of form. FPX with Dimasic and just this new roster to an extent with how they're playing. It's going to be interesting to see how they do. But that's the recap of everything I wanted to do. I said it wouldn't be a long video. It's 15 minutes, so I will just hop over to NA for now because I'm not really making any content on it. But we do have our qualifying teams. We have our top 4. And it is Immortals LG, Xset and Sentinels. So these were the games yesterday. Immortals beating Gen.G 2-0. It was pretty straightforward. 13-3. Gen.G really didn't show up on bind. This one was a bit of a better showing. I think it was just this game that Gen.G just didn't get started on. There's an over-reliance on Sean for sure, but you've got these more supporting players like GMD, Mikael, even Win hasn't necessarily shown up all that much in this tournament. And whilst we did see a really good showing from Gen.G against Sentinels, it was much better. Sentinels did not look good, but they warmed up to the occasion as the series went on. This Ascent game was much more in their favor. Sinatra especially was really good. But I do think that Sentinels need to be very careful. I think they're lucky that they qualified, to be honest. I think if they ran into somebody like Envy on the other side of the bracket, or LG or whoever, they would have been going home. But a good win for Sentinels and a good showing for Genji, but not quite enough there. Xset 2-1 against Envy, really good series. I definitely recommend checking it out if you get the chance. Crashies had a phenomenal game, but Mummy was super quiet. I'm not really sold on Mummy's Raze at all in particular, and I do think that they switch around for Food and Caboose. Food Sage has been, you know, a standout in the tournament, but when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. And so you have Caboose on Omen full time, whereas in the Winter Championship tournament, Caboose was playing a lot of the flex roles like the Phoenixes, the Reynas, and all that kind of stuff. It's a weird change of pace for Envy to change up their comp in this tournament, and it kind of bit them in the ass. But I think with more time that could work. LG, we got to consider them a top tier 1 team at this point. I think a dominant win over Envy is a good one. Envy had a good showing, but Luminosity are just built differently at this point. And then Immortals, you know, this is a team that is clearly doing wonders with the additions of Chemicals, Nature, and Shop is just, yet again, really doing the Lord's work, right? So these are the 4 teams for North America, and we are going to be deciding the top 4 teams in Europe. Again, I imagine it's going to be G2 Esports. I think OG could take this. I'm going to say them to be spicy. Fnatic, and who do I think for Team Liquid? FPX. I think Team Liquid, but FPX, if they win, it shows me that they're still a contender to win everything in Europe. So that's going to be a hell of a game. Don't miss that one. But we'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow after we see the results of today. But G2, OG is what I'm saying, because Guild look a little bit wonky in sometimes, and OG now having that upset potential and the honeymoon period of being an unsigned but kind of signed team. So maybe they could do some work there. But thanks for watching, and hopefully see you soon. Take care.